Hey there, welcome to the Literary Escapes podcast. I'm Becky, and I'm glad you're here today. If you're a fan of books that give you an escape or let you explore other cultures, then you're definitely in the right place. So I'm glad you've joined us today. Stick around, we've got a great author interview for you, so let's jump right in. So welcome, Sandy. I'm so glad you're here today. This is it's been a fun month spent in Greece with the whole book club. That's been a good time. So thank you
very much for the invitation. You're my first book club, so
yay!
It's kind of a little bit milestone in my author journey, but it was I heard from this book club and you guys are overseas, and I'm like, this is great. So yeah, it was a no-brainer for me. I'm absolutely delighted to be here with you all.
So you're in the UK, right? Do you live there? Or?
So I am in the UK. I'm this weird sort of mongrel hybrid. I'm an Oz-Mary Pom. So I'm from Australia and I live in Australia. My dad's English, mom's American. I call all three countries home, and of course with all of the lockdowns and border closures, etc., we haven't been able to get back to the UK for 3.5 years.
Oh.
So I was supposed to do this trip 2 years ago. This is my do-over trip, and I'm actually out of Australia for 6 weeks. So I'm just coming up on the end of week 5 of a 6-week trip. So
nice.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a mix. So it's it's visiting family. So my sister, my nephew and brother-in-law live here. My great aunt lives here, and then just kind of exploring. So we did a 2-week trip to Greece. We took my nephew, he's 11, and he was amazing. He's such a great little traveler. And then I've just been kind of splitting my time between just little side trips and a bit of work. So a bit of author work and a bit of my day job work.
Okay.
So I'm gearing up now. I've got 1 week left here, and it's just all holiday, just relaxing and reading.
Yay, finally.
I'm giving myself the week off. Yay, I know.
So when you read, what do you like to read?
Oh, that's great. I mean, I get asked to read a lot in my genre. So I read a lot of rom-coms and other romances and contemporary women's fiction. And I mean, there's just I'm just like any other reader. My TBR pile is enormous. A lot of it's on my Kindle. But if, like I always say that if it was physical books on my bedside table and it fell in the night, it would crush me.
I get that one.
There's always something. Yeah, I think that readers across the world relate with that one. But once in a while, I really love a gritty crime thriller. The more gruesome, the better. I just want to go to the complete opposite end of the spectrum. And I'm also kind of obsessed with World War II fiction. I absolutely love a good World War II.
There's been some really good ones out.
Book about so many. And I love it when it's the women's stories, because of course we've read all the men's stories. We've heard all the men's stories. What were the women doing? Well, they were very busy.
They were very
busy, and they were just as heartbroken, and they were doing it hard, just like the men. And yeah. I wanted to hear their stories, so I kind of throw myself into that.
That's we read last year sometime. We read The Last Bookshop in London, and by Madeline Martin. Have you read that one?
I haven't. That's on my
You need to read that
pile.
That was a really good one.
Yeah, there are so many. And actually, one of my good girlfriends, she's fellow author. Her name's Andy Newton, and she's actually lives in Washington State. She writes World War II fiction, and her books are just the kind that leave you almost, broken yourselves. You're kind of weeping your way to the end of the books. So yeah, Andy Newton, check her out. I think my favorite one of hers is called The Girls from the Beach, and it's about 4 nurses who go behind enemy lines. They're kind of based around Normandy. So yeah, it's pretty incredible stuff. So
wow, and I wrote that down.
She's like, you wouldn't know it to look at her, because she looks like a Barbie doll come to life. Like, she's so beautiful with long blonde hair, and she's really cute. But she's like writes these really gritty World War II dramas because that's her jam. That was what she studied for. She did her master's in history, and
that's so cool.
It's really interesting just to be able to read. I'm very grateful. Yeah, very grateful to be able to kind of just read across all sorts of genres, and
That's
I get a lot of books for free, which is a perk.
that's nice. Yeah, it's nice that there's so many authors that write so many different things, and we can enjoy them all.
Mhm.
Isn't that great?
It
Yeah.
is. It is. And I'm, as I said, I'm constantly, not constantly, but quite often somebody will say, oh, would you do an early read? I got a request today of a gal that I know over here in the UK. And I was like, oh my gosh, this premise is so good. So I'm like, yes, I'd love to read your book. So I get sneak peeks. That's the kind of really fun
That's a
thing.
fun
I get
thing,
sneak
yeah.
peeks on books that haven't come out yet.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. I enjoy that one too. So that's awesome. So you and I were talking a few minutes ago about you started as a blogger in the, I guess, online space. So what is was your blog about? What were you doing on that?
So I still have this blog, and for everybody else on this call, Becky was really great about making me feel very guilty for abandoning my blog. Like
I've done the same to mine, so don't feel guilty.
Blog, I know. I think we share that. But I started back in 2009 because I was traveling a lot, and then I'd get back from my trips, and my family would be like, send us pictures. And it was, email wasn't great about sending lots of pictures. So I'd have to send like batches and then tell the stories of what happened. And I kind of got tired of doing that. And I just thought, well, why don't I just blog about my travel adventures and put the pictures in the blog post? So I started it as a bit of a travel blog.
Okay.
It's called Off the Beaten Track. And I still have it. It's sandybarker.com if anyone wants to look it up. And I kind of have abandoned the writing about travel because that's mostly my fodder for my book. So I've just kind of channeled it into a different medium.
Right.
But on the blog, I used to write a lot about the process of writing, but I've got less time to do that now. But on the blog, I will still do kind of the promos for other authors. So when they've got books coming out, I do my 5 questions with Sandy Barker and ask them all about the book and their, what they love about being an author and that sort of thing. So mostly if you go to my site now, it's all these other authors and all their books. So if you're kind of interested in, what I've been reading, then that's a good place to start.
Yeah, you had some fun books on there. So that's a fun place to find some new books. And if you go back, you can see some of the fun travels. So that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you make the transition from blogger to author? What was that?
Well, I started to get pretty serious about writing around about 2013, 2014. And I had dusted off this manuscript. Look, I was a Kentucky tour manager in the 90s. So that was, the bus tours, and I ran the bus tours around Europe. And that was a time. And I kind of wrote this tell-all ages ago now, 20 years ago. I wrote this tell-all about my time doing that. And it kind of sat in a drawer for ages and ages. And then I thought, I'll fictionalize it. So dusted that off and was working on that. And I sent it off to an agent in Australia in 2013. And he got back to me. He said, look, I really like your writing voice, but this book's got too many plots, too many characters, too many timelines. He said, you're not Leanne Moriarty. It's not your first book. Go away and write me like a single linear narrative. And I was like, okay. And I mean, I have a kind of interesting love story myself. So my partner, Ben, and I, he's an American from Minnesota. We met on a pier in Santorini as we were about to get on the same sailing trip. So
that's fun.
I was like, well, that's kind of neat, how we met each other. And then we had a long distance relationship for over 2.5 years. I lived in Sydney, he was in St. Paul.
That's very long distance.
We traveled together. I know, like really long distance. We traveled together through those times. And I thought, well, why don't I write this story? Just kind of the story of boy meets girl, but told through the lens of traveling. So I did. And, you've all read the book now, so you know that there's a love interest, a second love interest. In real life, there's just the one.
Okay, that was one of the questions I had for you.
Yeah, there was no silver fox. No. I mean, just one long distance love was enough for me.
No kidding.
But the silver fox was super fun to write.
He was a fun character. Yeah, we all enjoyed him.
Yeah, me too. I really enjoyed writing him. So yeah, I went away and wrote that book, and it took me about a year and a half because I was working full time. And then I went back to the agent. He's like, "Oh my God, I love this. It's fantastic. Well, I want to represent you." And he shopped it around in Australia, but I have to say Australia wasn't really the right market for me. Travel fiction wasn't really a thing back then. They just didn't really know what to do with it. And of course, it was a romance book, and Australian romances tend to be the outback romances. There's
okay, yeah.
Jill got to save the family farm, and she hires rancher Jack, and it's just
exactly
wide open on the cover.
I was gonna say it's kind of like our Western romances, so yeah.
Oh, you know what, those are really much on par. And there's nothing wrong with that genre, but my book does not fit.
It doesn't fit in there at all. Yeah.
It doesn't fit there. Anyway, so let's fast forward a few years. So it sat in a drawer, and he said, "Look, I'm sorry, I can't sell your book." I'm like, "That's okay." And we parted ways amicably. Sat in a drawer. And I thought, look, I'll self-publish. So I finally self-published at the end of 2017. And then in 2018, Ben and I went on sabbatical. We spent a year living and working around the world. So we lived in Bali, we lived in the US, we lived in UK, and we lived in Portugal, and we did a bunch of side trips. So this was a big year. We've been planning it for a long time, and I was setting that time aside to write. So I wrote two follow-ups. I wrote two follow-ups to Santorini. And it was when I got to England that I was like, oh my gosh, travel fiction, travel romance is a genre here. And they were mad for it. There was all these really prolific writers here in the UK who write travel fiction. And I'm like, oh, it's real. It's a real subgenre. So it was like I felt like I'd come home, and of course I'm a British citizen and I've lived here, and it is my second home as well. So I started shopping around for publishers here in the UK and agents as well. And by the time I got back to Australia, I had a yes from HarperCollins.
Yay, that's exciting.
And I kind of turned that into a yes from the agent I wanted. And so my agent's in Edinburgh and my publisher's in London. And part of this trip is I went up to Edinburgh last week and met my agent face to face for the first time we've been together 3.5 years now. Yeah. And went down to London and went into the HarperCollins office and
how exciting.
My publishing team after 3.5 years. Yeah. But that's kind of how it all fell in. And that's why, even though I'm Australian, I often write Australian characters, and some of my books are set in Australia. That my main market and my publishers are over here is because this is where they just have that love for travel fiction, which I'm starting to see now emerging in the US, which is why I was so thrilled to get your request. And
that's awesome. Yeah.
Come and talk to you all. Yeah.
So, did you have to unpublish the one that you had published? Okay. That's I figured.
Yeah. So I had two books. I had two books self-published by that time.
Okay.
And then they actually swapped the order of books 2 and 3. So in my series, the holiday romance series, it starts with Santorini, then it goes to Paris, which is the third book I wrote, then Sydney. So for anyone who's on the call, if you are really keen to know what happens, because Sarah kind of gets her happy for now. If you want to know what happens with her and Josh and James, go to book 3, which is Sydney. And that picks up right when Kat picks her up from the airport.
Okay.
And then I wrote Bali, and Tuscany just came out.
Nice.
So there's 5 books in the series. Yeah.
Fine. And then is that going to be it for that series, or?
Yeah. I mean, I've been writing them for a long time now because I really started writing Santorini back in like 2014.
That is a long time.
So we're coming up on 8 years with those characters, and we get to the wedding. I'm not going to spoil who gets married, but we get to the wedding, and kind of by the end of that book, I'm like, they're good.
Yeah, we're done.
These characters are good. They're okay. We might revisit them. I might write a Christmas reunion back, in 10 years' time when they're all middle-aged like me, but I don't know. Maybe, they can spend the entire time just talking about what it's like to be perimenopausal.
Because everybody wants to read about that.
Funny. Oh, right. I know. It's so romantic.
That's awesome.
Probably that one would just be for me. Yeah.
So you did a lot of publishing during the pandemic. Was that a productive time as far as like writing, or just the publishing?
So by the time I got the contract, I had 3 manuscripts under my belt. So they were kind of excited about publishing those. Boom, boom, boom. So 2019, first book came out. 2020, I actually had 3 books out in 2020. So it was Paris and Sydney in the series, and then the Christmas swap. So of course I had the first 3 under my belt, and I pitched them the idea of the Christmas swap, and was like, that just poured out of me. I wrote that in about 2 months, and this is while working full time, because what else was there to do?
Exactly. Yeah.
And then exactly. I wrote The Dating Game. I wrote Bali in 2021, and Dating Game came out last year. Bali came out earlier this year. And then I switched on to Tuscany. So look, I have a lot of author friends who their creativity kind of dried up during the pandemic. And then some are like me, where it just flowed because there wasn't really much else to do. And then I live in Melbourne, and Melbourne has this dubious honor of being like the most locked down city in the world. So we had like 380 days of lockdown in 20 months. And that's like, you can't leave the house unless you have legitimate reasons to leave the house, kind of lockdown. Wow. So we were like,
stir crazy.
And there's so much Netflix you can watch.
Yeah, wow. And especially if you're someone who's used to going and doing and travel and all of that. That's painful.
Yeah, I think it was therapeutic for me, because I was kind of armchair traveling in my head, and doing the research for the books, where I go back to my photos, I go back to my travel journals, go back to my blogs, and just do my desktop research. So I got to go to Bali, go to Edinburgh, I got to go to Tuscany, mentally speaking. But the book that I wrote and edited in lockdown was The Dating Game. And that book, I didn't realize until after it came out that I actually wrote a book about lockdown in lockdown. So it's my lockdown book about lockdown, because it's about a dating show like The Bachelor, where all the contestants live in the same house and they can't leave.
Oh, funny.
Kind of pressure cooker of just being in each other's space all the time. And I'm like, afterwards,
I have no idea what that's like, right?
Oh yeah. It's like, it's so interesting that I explored that theme without even knowing.
Exactly. But, that's so funny.
So this trip was, it's like, I get to leave the country. I'm going for 6 weeks.
Yeah, no kidding.
Could it be longer? Yes, it could have been longer, but I'm also a bit of a homebody as well. So I'll be looking forward to my own bed and my own place.
That'll be nice. Yeah.
In a couple of weeks time. Yeah.
Be able to write on your desk and all of that.
Yes.
That'll be nice.
Yeah. In my space. Yeah.
That's good. That's all good stuff. So what are you working on right now?
Well, my next book that's coming out is a follow-up to the Christmas swap.
Okay.
So I wrote that as a standalone, but then I love this character so much. I'm like, what are they doing now?
So tell us a little bit about that book.
Sure. So the Christmas swap was inspired because I love Christmas so much. I'm like a Christmasaholic. I'm like a little kid at Christmas. I'm like, the tree goes up a month early. We play Mariah Carey on repeat. Like, I just love Christmas. And I've had Christmases around the world. So I was like, okay, I want to write a Christmas book. What if I wrote a Christmas book, and I got to draw from my time, Christmas in Oxfordshire, which is really beautiful, with the, little village in Oxfordshire where my great aunt lives, with the thatched cottages and just really beautiful kind of traditional English country town. So it's like, that was one. I'm like, that's good. And then I spent Christmas at Breckenridge with a friend of mine from college.
Nice.
One year, and that was amazing. And it was at his family's cabin. And we get there and it's like sleeps 20 people, and you're like, so that was great. And it was kind of all the cousins. It was just fantastic fun. So it's like, I want that Christmas. And then Christmas in Melbourne, where it's hot, and we just turn on the AC and we drink champagne all day and have like the seafood platter and the pavlova. So I'm like, okay, I've got my 3 Christmases. And originally I was going to write kind of 3 subsequent Christmases with this one woman. But then I was like, kind of would be fun if I had 3 friends that lived on 3 different continents and they swapped Christmases for the year. So I'm like, well, how do 3 people who live on 3 different continents know each other? So I actually get them together when their families are on holiday in Maui when they're 11. And they're a kids club together. So there's the Aussie, the Australian, the Aussie, the American, and the British. And they become like lifelong friends, and they start traveling together in their 20s.
Oh, fun.
And it comes to talking about Christmas plans, and everyone's just kind of like, the gal from Colorado is like, oh my God, I hate the snow. I just want to be somewhere where it's warm. And the girl from Melbourne where it's warm, she's like, my parents are going on a cruise, it's not going to be Christmas, I just want a traditional Christmas. And the English girl's like, well, you can come here, we have very traditional Christmas. I just would like a white Christmas because it rarely snows in the UK at Christmas time.
Oh, how fun. So they all
hey, boom, 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 boom. Yeah. And then because I write rom-coms, of course there's a love interest in every location.
They each get a love interest?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, that's not much of a spoiler. So it's like, friends, the boy across the road, and like the brother. So yeah, they all get a love interest.
Aw, how fun.
Anyway, so it's super fun. And it just switches between the 3 locations and the 3 Christmases.
That's fun.
So I wanted to, it's a fun read. Like I really just had a great time writing it, and I love these characters so much. So it was another no-brainer. Just like, let's bring them back together. This time they all go to Hawaii though.
Oh, fun. Okay. And is it at Christmas again?
Yeah, it's Christmas. So it's I don't know what the title will be. It's on my editor's desk at the moment. So it might just be something really imaginative, like the Christmas Swap 2. So everyone knows what they're getting.
Right. That's so funny. Okay.
Yeah, so that's still I haven't done the edits for that yet, so that'll be coming because that's out in October. I'll have a title and a cover soon and edits.
Nice.
And then I actually finished my contract with HarperCollins. So this 8-book contract over the last 3.5 years.
Nice.
So I'm working with my agent on something new, and of course HarperCollins has been my publisher for so long. I want them to have first look. I'm hoping they're going to go, yeah, it's amazing, we love it, let's go with this brand new series.
That would be fun.
And it's not, I think that there are other publishing houses where it might be fun, but it's
especially you've got 8 books under your belt, so yeah. Yeah. So I think that's what is happening. There are a few. I went to the romance novelist conference while I've been here, and there were a few editors there who are like, "You're Sandy Barker," and I'm like, "Yes, hello." So I think I'm hoping that this new series will get snapped up, but it's a modern take on fairy tales. So it's just kind of playing with tropes, enemies to lovers and friends to lovers, and just some of my favorite tropes to write, but with kind of a take on fairy tales. So yeah, that's a fun one. That'll be enjoyable to write.
Very, very, very sneak preview. Yeah, I think it will be fun to write, but that's a very, very sneak preview because pretty much nobody knows that except for my agent and my close author friends. So
that'll be fun to hear about.
Keep someone close to your chest.
I look forward to
watch this space.
Hearing how that goes.
Space. Yeah,
that'll be fun.
Yeah,
so
I'll be shouting about it on social media if it comes.
Yeah, when it starts getting further along, that'll be fun. So, where's the favorite place that you've traveled to, or is that a fair question?
Well, I love Greece. Yeah, it's a fair question. I mean, it's some people, have these great careers. Some people, make a beautiful home for their families, and I travel. I think that's why Ben and I, when we met, we were just kind of kindred spirits because we just kind of wanted to travel to all the places. I love living in Bali. It was just one of the most amazing times of my life because we had this huge build up to the sabbatical, and it was our first location on sabbatical. And there's a lot of work that goes into that, and we've both been working full time for years and years and years, and we both kind of got there and went, you know. And the Balinese people are just exquisite human beings. They're just such beautiful people, and it's just a place where you can be yourself and
That's so awesome.
just kind of figure out what matters and what's important. So I thought that was a really great place. I would happily live in Bali again. And Greece is fantastic. We just got back from our third trip together to Greece. I used to travel there on the tours that I ran, but Greece is just so beautiful. And I know that Penny's just got back from Greece too, so she can agree with me. I don't know if anybody else on the call has ever traveled there, but
I've been there once. I'd love to go again.
It is, yeah, it's just beautiful. It's just, I mean, the Greek food is phenomenal. I don't know if I get told that sometimes people get really hungry reading my books because my characters eat so much, but my characters just eat as much as I do when I'm there. So it's just something I'd like to bring into my storytelling. So I think Greece, but I love Italy. I absolutely love Italy. I would live in Italy in a heartbeat. It's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful country. And it's, you know, there's lots of different regions, so you can kind of have very different experiences.
Nice.
Yeah.
When are you heading back over to the US, or do you have any plans for that?
Oh, yeah, I know this. Well, this trip was like, because my partner, as I said, he's in Minnesota. He's actually in Minnesota right now. So when we got back from Greece, I stayed in the UK and he flew on to see his family.
Okay, so he still lives in Minnesota. It's still a long distance relationship?
Oh, no, we both live in Melbourne, but he hasn't seen them because of the border closures. He hadn't seen them. And we missed like his grandma's 90th birthday. And, you know, so he's over there seeing his family now and getting that family time. But yeah, hopefully next year, we're going to do another mid-year trip. So leave the Australian winter, come over and have summer. I like summer back to back. I think that's kind of the perfect travel year.
That's a good title for a book, you know, Chasing Summer.
Oh yeah, for sure. So my day job, yes. I'm not teaching anymore, Penny. I was a teacher for about 14 years. I taught high school. But now I work for an education company called Pearson, you might have heard of. And my day job, I don't work 5 days a week, just 4, but my day job is in online learning, adult learning, which, as you can imagine, during the pandemic, we were very, very busy because suddenly everybody wanted to do online learning. But that's my day job. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So I work in learning and development, trying to upskill people so that they can do online learning. Yeah.
Would you like to become a full-time author?
Yeah. And even my boss knows that's the plan. I used to be full-time. I've gone kind of 4 days a week. I'm like, how about 3 days a week? He's like, But I think I'm probably about a year and a half away from that. So I'm hoping 2024 I can kind of step away for good.
Excellent.
Depending on the fairy tale series, we'll see.
There you go.
Snaps that up.
It's funny because some authors, they say like 10 books is kind of the magic number to kind of keep the income piece flowing. And I'm curious about like how that actually works, but I've heard that a couple of different times.
I think that every book begets more readers. So, you know, readers might kind of come in at the Christmas swap and go, what else has she written? And then go back and start the series, or they'll see Tuscany come out and go, oh, that's number 5. I need to go back and start the series. So we have actually seen sales of the series pick up as the books have been being released.
As you go further into the series.
And I imagine that when Christmas swap too. Yeah, absolutely. So it's nice to actually see readers going, oh, I've discovered a new author. I'm finding that less and less people kind of come in at Santorini.
Right.
They kind of have to do their research and go, oh no,
there it is. Yeah. Okay.
So that's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, look, I discovered one of my favorite authors, and she lives in LA. She's a British author, but she lives in LA, called Lindsay Kelk. And if you like travel fiction, she writes her I Heart series. It starts with I Heart New York. That's a fantastic series. It's so funny. And, you know, I discovered her when she'd written 5 books in that series, and I was thrilled to bits. I was like, oh my God, yay! I get to read 5 more, you know, 4 more. Yeah, there's more. So it's always fun discovering a new author, and they've got a whole back catalog that you can get your
I
stuck into.
absolutely agree.
Really
yeah. And I remember seeing her books, the I Heart series, and they're set in different place. Each one's set in a different place, which who doesn't love that? So yeah.
Yeah, it's super fun. And she's got, actually, it's very cheeky, but when I went into the publisher, because we have the same publisher, we went in the other day, and this is her Christmas book.
Ooh.
And it's not out yet. But I've started reading it, and it's hilarious. It's so good. And when I was in London over the last few days, I've been taking pictures of her book in London. I'm like, here's your book at Trafalgar Square. Here's your book. So I'm going to send them to her in case she wants those pictures.
Oh, that's
when
fun.
the book comes out, and she can kind of share like her book on tour in London. But yeah, it's really, really fun.
Awesome.
It's set in the UK. Yeah, I love her books. She's my favorite writer. I read everything that she writes. She's so good.
That's fun. Have you met her in person?
To her career. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I have actually. My sister had met her a few times at book signings, and on that sabbatical year, we went to a book signing. It was like my first night here in the UK. I was so jet lagged. But I've been kind of contacting her on socials, and I was self-published by then, and I was like, I'm trying to make it. I was in hospital in Chicago. Like, it was all these things. I was like, I'm not going to make it. And then I made it, and I was like, hi, I'm Sandy Barker. She's like, oh my God. And she gave me a hug, and I was like fangirling big time. And
how fun.
And then when I got the publishing deal a few months later, I emailed her and just said, hey, I'm got a publishing deal with HarperCollins. And she wrote back and said, I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy for you. And so, yeah, she's really inspired me, really, really inspired me. I love her voice. It validates that, again, that travel fiction is really a thing, and that the rom-com is here to stay. It is a valid form of fiction. It's super fun, that escapism that we read, and just to enjoy ourselves, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's people, especially the last few years, people have needed the escape of, I think, both romance, the travel piece, all of that. People needed to be somewhere else in their head, at least, and that's an important part of it all. Yeah, we found that my publisher mentioned that travel fiction was just skyrocketing. My sales during those 2 years in particular just was like through the roof, which was lovely. Getting me one step closer to full-time author. But and as I said, really fun to write as well, just kind of escape from me as an author. Mm-hmm. Is there somewhere that you have not been that you would like to go? Or you said Norway. I think Scandinavian countries. I really, really want to get there. I've got a good author friend who lives there called Natalie Norman. She writes beautiful books set in Norway. Definitely, Norway's probably Norway, Denmark, Sweden. They're up there definitely. And I don't know, I kind of tend to like to go back to places as well, but I'd like to go to more places in the Mediterranean. Never been to Malta. I'd love to go to Malta. I'd love to go to Croatia. Lots of countries. Yeah. So I think the list will continue to be long, long, long. That's a good thing, I think. Yeah. That's nothing wrong with a good long travel wish list. Wish list. Yeah. Just making it come true. Yep. Any desire to go to Antarctica? No. Just out of curious. Actually, I have a friend who did the trip where she actually stood, they did the kind of like, it was one day there. Oh. They kind of landed, walked around, I've been in Antarctica, took the pictures, and then left. And I'm like, no. I mean, that's interesting. Flyover. They do the flyover flights now. I have a friend who went down to Antarctica, and she actually worked there for whatever the season is, and she was in HR. And it was so interesting to hear her stories. Yeah. That's not the job that you would think. I'm getting transferred. I work in HR. I'm getting transferred to Antarctica. Really? There's a big call for HR down there. It was like only like 200 people there at any given time. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's really interesting. It was interesting. Yeah.
Now, that's a book.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree with that. I had another question for you. So, it just totally went out of my head. I hate it when that happens.
Questions, right? No, that's all right. Anyone else got any questions? You can type them into the chat. I can see the chat.
I had asked you what you're reading.
I've got a question. Oh, what I'm reading right now. What I'm reading. Oh, the book that I stole from the HarperCollins bookshelf.
Yeah.
No, they gave it to me. I'm reading that. I just finished reading the Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which
that's a good one.
Highly recommended.
Yeah, we read that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I do have a question for this group though. I kind of want to know who's Team Josh and who's Team James.
Who picked Josh and who picked James?
Yeah, who? Yeah, so cute American boy or silver fox? I'm curious.
Yeah, so if you picked James, raise your hand. The silver fox. So Penny.
Interesting. Okay.
Leslie, kinda. Yeah. Okay. Who picked James? I mean, Josh. Sorry,
picked Josh, the younger guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Madeline, nice.
Did.
Okay.
Yeah. Interesting.
Nice. Yeah.
Well, I will share one funny story with you, which was when I was writing the follow-up, which is A Sunset in Sydney. I kept going back and forth in my mind who she'd end up with, because I'd write a section where she's with this one, and then I'm like, oh, that's so beautiful, and then I write this one, and I'm like, oh, no. And then I legitimately did not know until the very last chapter who she would end up with.
Wow.
And my poor American boyfriend at the time was going, she's going to end up with the American, right? And I'm like, I don't know.
But she has to.
Is that going to be a problem? Are you going to be upset? She ends up with the other guy. He's like, well, yeah. Like he was really attached to the character because he had inspired this character, so he's super attached to him anyway. But I'm not going to spoil it for you because I will tell you, if you do read it, that I Sandy would have chosen the other one.
The silver fox. Oh, you don't with the other one.
Oh,
okay.
No, I don't.
Okay.
We don't know. But if you read it and you read the last chapter and you see who she ends up with, I think that me personally, I would have chosen the other one.
The other way.
That's just a little juicy tidbit.
So now I have to go find out.
I don't always agree with my characters. Sometimes my characters do the stupidest stuff. The current Greece trip was for inspiration. So we flew into Athens and we picked up the sailing trip there, and we went to the island of Poros, which is right near Athens. And then we sailed around one of the fingers of the Peloponnese. So the Peloponnese is that part of Greece that looks like a hand. And we stayed on the mainland for a couple of nights and did a day trip over to the island of Hydra, which is spelled Hydra. Yeah. Then we went across to the Cyclades Islands, and we have been waylaid by the weather, so we couldn't get across until a couple of days in. And we went to Kythnos, 2 nights on Kythnos, different ports, Seraphos and Syros, and we ended up on Syros, and we stayed an overnight there. Nice. Which is in Santorini, the Santorini book. They go there. That's where they walk through the town with the dog. And I posted it on Instagram last week, but we took a photo in the same place, the same square where Ben and I did have a tour of the island with the dog.
That was a question we had. Yeah.
And he took a picture of me. Yeah. So that was the true travel story. And I have a photo of me with the dog, and then me in the same spot 16 years later with my nephew.
Funny. Okay.
So we went back to and kind of retraced some of our steps on that island. Yeah.
That's pretty great. Fun. Yeah.
It's a beautiful, beautiful island. Yeah, it was fun. It was really fun.
We're in the Peloponnese.
If you check Instagram.
Okay.
We're in the Peloponnese. We stayed at Ermione. Really loved it. It was just absolutely gorgeous. So yeah, we got to explore a bit more. The only place we went to on this latest trip that we hadn't been to before was Syros. So everything else was new to us, which was super fun. So I'm thinking of writing it into my first fairy tale book, is a trip down to the island.
Oh, fun! That would be fun.
I don't have any Greek heritage, but I feel like I should, because I just feel like at home there. I just really love it. really love the Greek people. I love the culture. I love the scenery and the food. I love the food especially. I don't know if I mentioned that.
And it has the whole package, doesn't it? So if people want to keep in touch with you, where can they find you at online?
So I'm usually on socials. I love Twitter. I'm Sandy Barker on Twitter. I'm Sandy Barker Author on Instagram, and Sandy Barker -author on Facebook. So you can kind of connect with me on any of those. And always happy to hear from you. And if you just go to my website, sandybarker.com, that's probably the easiest to remember.
Okay.
And then you can kind of find out.
Everything's on there. Yeah. You so much for joining us today. This was a ton of fun.
Absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Thank you very much. I'm so glad you enjoyed the read. It's really nice to hear that people in the States and in Norway are reading my books. That's always just a bit of a thrill for me. So thank you very much, and happy reading, and keep me posted on what you guys are reading next.
Yeah, we'll do.
Interested to get another recommendation. Yeah.
And happy writing. Look forward to seeing what comes out next.
Thank you. I'll keep everybody posted on my blog. It'll be my next blog post. What next?
That sounds good. Bye, everyone. Have a good day.
Thanks for joining me today on the Literary Escape podcast. If you enjoy hearing the behind the book story, then join me in the Literary Escape Society. We're a community of travelers who love books, or maybe book lovers who love to travel. Either way, if you need an escape, a literary escape, come join us as we read our way around the world together, one book at a time. Check out the show notes to learn more about the Literary Escape Society. And we'll see you next time on the next episode.